All right, welcome everybody. We've promoted this all week and talked about what we're going to do with myself and Boyd Duckett. And first of all, I want to thank Paul and Jana for having us here at GTO. I can't thank them enough. He's got the setup here with Micah running things, so it's awesome. And a couple people I want to thank. One is that helped make this possible is Bass Mooch. Bass Mooch has now bought Profound Outdoors. Nothing's going to change there, all the molds and things like that. So we get a lot of that from year to year, different things happening in the fishing industry, but they're not going to change. The only difference is it'll be called Bass Mooch now. So they just purchased Profound Outdoors, and I got to be the one to announce it. So hey. I guess Timmy's probably off on a beach somewhere now. Waterland, Thump Gel, Plenum Medical, and the Bill Dance Giant Bass Open. We may talk about that a little later. Tournament that Bill Dance is doing now. I don't know if y'all have heard about that. We talk about a lot of times with these anglers what they're going to do after fishing, and of course Bill Dance. I mean, he can do anything he wants, but he's starting this new virtual tournament across the country, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I know everybody came to hear about forward-facing sonar and came to hear from the man himself, Boyd Duckett with MLF. So y'all can ask questions. We can see the questions on TikTok. We can see them on Facebook. So y'all ask whatever you want. And we're going to talk about the new limitations to forward-facing sonar, how forward-facing sonar has affected bass fishing, and what you're going to do about it.
Yeah, and what you going to do about it. That's right. Yeah. Well, I guess the open would be I wish I had all the answers correctly, which we don't. But one thing that we have for sure is we understand that we are in a new era, coming into a new age. It's currently forward-facing sonar, but really all of technology, right? As technology comes into our space, how do we manage it? What does that do to tournament fishing? And there's two sides, really. You have bass fishing and the enjoyment of bass fishing, and forward-facing sonar, which is a wonderful technology. I mean, I love it. It's fun to go do, and it promotes opportunities for people to target fish they haven't in the past, and to probably have a better experience on the water. But in tournament fishing, it has been so dominant because the technology offers us advantages we didn't used to have. And so that's presented a problem in tournament fishing in participation. And so that's really what the cause is. So, as a league and as a tournament organization, but just as an angler, just like you, tournament fishing's always meant a lot to us. And there's a lot of us in or out of a tournament organization that understand, how much fun, that's our passion. We love to go if it's a 20 boat derby or a 200 boat, $5,000 entry fee event. We guys like to tournament fish. So where our head is at Major League Fishing is, what does it take to get everybody to come together and participate together? Because one thing I'm certain of, I've mentioned this earlier, what we can't do in our space and what will hurt all of us in our space is if we divide. We can't have forward-facing events and non-forward-facing events because you can't afford to run them. The participation isn't high enough to make it work. We also don't want to frustrate our anglers and run them out of our sport, because collectively as a group, we're way stronger when we find a way to come together. So that's where our thought is. Whether we do it right or do it wrong, or we're part of the way there, it's about that. So last year, moving into the season with Bass Pro Tour, we started playing with some of the possibilities of what seemed to be the right amount of forward-facing time, so that technique integrated into professional bass fishing, but didn't dominate. And so we ended up at about a third of the day. It's a really cool dynamic to be able to choose when that happens, which they do on the Bass Pro Tour. And that's been really well received by anglers and fans, and most of our fans are anglers. So following that philosophy, that's sort of where I am, is I think that we need to start now thinking about how can we take that to to other tournament trails, what technology needs to be created so that we can have that controlled amount, that roughly 1/3 of the day appears to really helped make Bass Pro Tour, make all of the techniques. Guys spent 30 years learning how to throw a crankbait better than you can, throw a jerkbait better than you can, punch better than you can. And so where all of their techniques can kind of be fair, and at times you win punching and I win cranking and he wins scoping, and we all have a chance.
Well, that helps the bait companies too, because you're not just going and buying minnows and jig heads. You're having to buy baits to do all other techniques. We're going to get into the how do you police it, but the thing is, can we bring those people back? And you're talking about co-anglers. When you're talking about splitting the field, we're talking about anglers that feel like they can't compete when people can live scope all day long. We've lost those guys. The Toyota series at Pickwick, which normally has 250, 260 boats, I think we had 116 this year. Mm-hmm. And I blame some of that on social media, because it's social media and forward-facing sonar. You're having 30-pound bags to get a check, and then it gets blasted on social media, and the local guy goes, I'm not spending $1,800.
Yep.
And so is it enough? And I know that's the $1 million question. If you cut it to 1/3 of the day, is that enough to bring them back to the fold? And the co-anglers, because the co-anglers are really the most important part of this, in my opinion. You're looking at these co-anglers that don't want to sit up there behind somebody out in the middle of the lake. So is this going to be enough to bring them back?
And that's a good question. I don't know that I know the answer, but I think that for sure, if collectively as an industry we can agree that some amount of restriction is needed, and I think most that I've talked to, we've agreed to that, then the only thing we have left is to figure out how much. So because of the overwhelming positive response to Bass Pro Tour, 1/3 seems to be a really good place to start. And maybe it's a 3-hour period, maybe it should be a 2-hour period, and those adjustments can be made. But I think we should all collectively, for sure, not fight about, let's ban it, let's keep it at 100%. Yeah. I think we need to all come together and realize that it's only fair. If I went to if we created a technology, a cranking technique where it dominated and it was the only thing you could do to win a bass tournament, everybody doesn't want to do that every single day and may not have a history in that. They're Greg Hackney, not that he can't throw crankbait, but I just use him as an example because Hackney's an unbelievable flipper. He understands things that took 30 years to reach that skill level. Oh, yeah. So to strip, so you can't strip an angler from that. Same goes for forward facing. Let's talk about the Drew Grills and the Dustin Cannells and the guys at Bass that have come along and have perfected this technique. It's also not fair to strip them of what they have learned, because they have put in thousands of hours to perfect that technique. So to me, the question is, how much fits? Is it a 2-hour period or 3-hour period?
And the biggest, because I've done videos about restricting it, and the biggest question I've got is, how do you police it? And here's my answer. When we say, how do you police that? If there had never been a fishing tournament in the history of fishing, and I come to you today and said, Boyd, I got an idea. We're going to start a fishing tournament. We're going to send 200 guys out there to let them catch their 5 biggest fish and come back and weigh in. The first thing you're going to ask me is, how do we police it?
Yeah, that's right.
But now we just take for granted that people are going to be honest, and most of the time they are. Occasionally you get somebody that's not. And I know that there's going to be issues. We're always going to have issues with people not doing the right thing, but we've got to start somewhere, because I'm not a guy that thinks you should ban forward-facing sonar. I think there's an issue. I think that we need to do something. I don't think banning it's the answer, but we got to start somewhere.
We do have to start somewhere, and so when, like some of the other tournament organizers we've talked recently about, as you know, we launched the Score Tracker Live, available to all tournament organizations, coming next year. And that's the same question again. It's how do we control that? If they're weighing their own fish. But the first answer would be, you have 2 pages of rules. How do you enforce those, right? So we're starting at the same question. And we use polygraphs in our space. The same thing, I'll say this, because I've worked really hard the last year or two, our whole team has, to see what's available to us in technology. But technology, which caused our problem, is also going to solve our problem. It's amazing what's out there and is coming so rapidly now. I can envision where we have video of all the anglers that compete. I know that there is AI available that, bass is a snowflake. And so, everyone's different that way. A biologist can determine that. I can't. Me and you can't look at it and tell. But weighing the same fish twice, putting it in your tank, that was when somebody asked me that question. Well, AI can look at that if you held it to the camera until you got your green light, and then you couldn't weigh that one again. So, it's interesting how much technology will help us govern that we never had.
So you opened the door there, talking about that.
Okay.
So you and I have talked before about tournaments. I've always been a big proponent of catch, weigh, release. I think if we're going to do weigh-ins this time of year, we should do 3 fish. Where I've made a statement that I thought within 5 years everything would be catch, weigh, release. But you think it's going to be sooner than that?
I think the majority will happen sooner than that at 5, but 5 years goes by pretty quick, in our time. But I think you're dead on the hammer in that the weigh-in days are leaving us. And I represent the biggest weigh-in tournament organization in the world. We run more tournaments and have more weigh-ins than anybody. So huge challenge for us to overcome. But I think that there's enough information out now via the states. And the states are really driving. State of Alabama, right here where we are, Auburn did post weigh-in mortality testing, and a lot of the states are doing that right now. And I communicate with them, and they're finding information that none of us that fish. Look, bass fishermen care about their fish. I mean, there's 1 in a million, but most would do anything to make their fishery better and take care of fish. But we're learning things now that we never knew about post-weigh-in mortality. So catch, weigh, release, very positive from that standpoint, and I think that it's going to come whether we want it to or not. So we're scrambling to figure out how to do it and govern it, and those are the issues that we're working on. So we're fully prepared because he's right, guys. It's coming. You can't stop it.
So back to the limiting forward-facing sonar. You talked earlier, before we started, I'd asked you about the co-anglers, about what were you doing for the co-anglers, and you talked about making the regionals closer, where those guys can travel easier. And I mean, obviously that we want the co-anglers to come back. We talk about high school kids being the future of the sport and college kids being the future of the sport. Co-anglers are too, because I talked to Justin Lucas was a co-angler. Okay, a great co-angler.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But there's a lot of these guys that are fishing professionally. They were co-anglers at once too. And Lake asked me a question. We went to Sam Rayburn this year in the Toyota Series, and he fished it. And he looked at me and he said, "Daddy," he said, "if it wasn't for forward-facing sonar, would we be here?" I said, "Oh, yeah. Daddy would be fishing and you would be a co-angler learning." That's where we would be.
That's where we would be.
Because live scope, I mean, we have to admit that it put a lot of these younger guys on a fast track to stardom, fast track to success, not taking anything away from them because they worked at it too. But it did. And so in doing that, something that we don't talk about a lot, I think that took a lot of our co-anglers. Forward-facing sonar took a lot of our guys that, and I'm not bashing anybody that's great at forward-facing sonar. Please don't think that. However, it does give people an ability that we didn't once have to go out and catch fish easier. And so guys now, where they would usually be a co-angler, they're going out and fishing. And so now, we're so short on the co-angler side. It's terrible. But I do think I've talked to a lot of co-anglers about this, and I get a lot of them comment, and they love limiting it to a third of the time. Mm-hmm. And I think my videos in the beginning was talking about a half the time, which would be my preference. But anyway, limiting it half the time, that guarantees that co-angler half the time he's going to be fishing.
That's right. Co-anglers, to your point, co-anglers, a big part of what we do. We have about 14 to 15,000 unique anglers that fish with us in our BFL series. Toyota Bass Fishing League, Phoenix Bass Fishing League, that provides us both Toyota Series and Phoenix Bass Fishing League. Those are the ones that come into our space. Those are the new guys. I would say most of the pros started, as a non-boater or a co-angler. I know, back in the red bands, you same situation when it was draws. Yeah. You could sign up. That's how I started. I fished red bands from the back of the boat, and then I got a boat, and I fished from the front of the boat, and went through the evolution. So the co-anglers are critical for us, and not just the restriction of forward-facing sonar, but also, like you said, the local regionals, and we're in a process now, and I'll say it. Don't know what the result's going to be, but we're really looking hard at cost. We're $220 for the boater and $110 for the co-angler, and we are playing with. I'm not promising anything, so don't send me bad mail if it stays the same. Okay, but we are looking at everything, and it may be that cost is an issue, and so maybe we have to have a little lesser entry fee, and which might make it a little lesser payout, but whatever it takes to keep our participation and keep people fishing is what we're here for. So. Co-anglers matter to us, and we're going to fix that.
Well, that was the big thing that I was wondering was, would it bring the co-anglers back? And with forward-facing sonar, obviously that's been the hottest topic through this year. And people, the live scopers would say, why don't we schedule it? We can fix it through scheduling. Some of them say, we could do half the tournaments with, half the tournaments without, because doing it that way, the argument that I get from live scopers is, if I'm only getting to do it part of the time, then I'm gonna have to practice for both. Well, bless it.
Yeah.
Bless it.
Yep.
But I get half the tournaments with, half the tournaments without. But guys are saying, well, why don't we schedule it? And that's one thing that, as much as I talk bad about Bassmaster, I give them credit for their scheduling. Weather helped them a little bit, but this year in their tournaments, half the tournaments are going to be one with it, half the tournaments are going to be one without it. Now, MLF, you're going to have to do both, because it's a third of the time. But that's the scoper's question is, well, why can't we just schedule better to where it's not all scoping events? And what do you say to that? Because, we know what lakes we can go to that's not going to be one scoping. However, some of the scopers have proven us wrong on that, too. I never thought Okeechobee would be a scoping lake.
Never thought Okeechobee would be. I wouldn't. Jacob Wheeler won at Santee when they were spawning, and it was during a flood, and the water was the color of the red in the GTO sign, and he won scoping. So yeah, it's crazy, but I think that the right limitation and having, I look at it as a technique that needs to be incorporated evenly with the other ones. So you wouldn't say you couldn't crank one of the days, okay, or that you couldn't punch one of the days. And so instead of running into those unfair opportunities, weather would dictate, the perfect, forward-facing day, comes and goes, and that was your day. Yeah. It's not. It really creates an imbalance in the field. So I think being able to use your technique to ride your skill, which all pros do, and remember too, you and I are really kind of talking about the pro level side, but my bigger interest is all of the rest of fishing. Yeah. Our pros, at Bass Pro Tour, Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, the Elite Series, the NPFL, they're going to fish no matter what we do.
Yeah.
I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that they're professional anglers and they're going to take on whatever set of challenges they're on. They're going to fish. We're really talking about participation nationally in tournament fishing. Makes it work for everybody watching, all the boat manufacturers, engine manufacturers, protection of our lakes, the voice in the outdoor space, the influence that we have on government bodies to make our fisheries better. All of that is created from numbers. So the big challenge is what's the right thing for everybody to do? Not that they have to do exactly what we do, but that's kind of where my head is what works so that we can incorporate, your portion of forward-facing sonar so that it's just another fair technique. And that's why I say I'm kind of past. I'm kind of past all of those questions personally. Not that I've got it right, but I've fought through myself to the point where to me it's just a matter of what is the right and correct and fair amount of time. But I think it needs to happen every day.
So let me ask you this. Let's say that we go to a third of the time, and let's take the BFLs. Mm-hmm. Okay, we got a third of the time, and I'm going to ask the question that gets asked the most. How are we going to police that in the BFLs? Are we going to do that with the co-anglers? Do we have technology that can do that? Where are we at with that?
So all of it would be the first answer, because we're in a position now where we're cutting new ground every year now for a little while with all of these changes coming in place. We're taking on new challenges and pioneering new waters that we haven't been in. But I think that it's pretty easy with the co-anglers, but I have also, for us, but I'm thinking more about all of the weekend tournaments and all of our local reservoirs, the 150 boat tournaments. I would like to see everybody be able to do it and to create unity within
that would take technology.
And that takes technology. So along those lines, we work with Precision Sonar. They created our boxes that you currently see us use at the pro level. And just in case somebody asks me, they're like, would the are your BPT guys going to cheat if they didn't have the box on? No, they won't, but we still have the box. And one of the reasons is that's our testing ground for everything. You'll see us do a lot of things. We have, at the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, we ran Vosker cameras this year. So we watched all 150 guys. We weren't full in all of them, but full fields. And a tournament director can watch them all day long. And that's not because we don't trust our Tackle Warehouse Invitational guys. It's because we want that technology to become available so that we can take it down to the rest of the levels. On the forward-facing, go back to Precision Sonar, their team is currently working on that lockbox in such a way so that it can be automatically opened and closed and can be tracked. So if we're able to accomplish that through technology, then you can't beat it. And if it's open for longer than the time period, let's just say it's 3 hours for conversation. If it's open 3 hours and 2 minutes, you get a pound a minute penalty. And then now you don't have to worry about it. We know they can't beat us, but that's coming.
And so back to that you said about the lock boxes on the Bass Pro Tour, so that people know, I only know of one instance this year that there was an issue with the lockbox. Mm-hmm. That was with Alton Jones Jr. It's the only one I know of that happened through all of the tournaments that we've had. We had one issue where I think he ended up breaking the key with it or something, couldn't get it off. Mm-hmm. But that's what people are wondering is, the policing part, and with the technology, that would be awesome to be able to do it. But again, I tell people, how do we police tournaments anyway? We have one way, and that's a polygraph test.
That's it.
But, the people that have, it's been very positive with the videos that we've done, the lives that I've done so far to talk about it with, doing it a third of the time. Co-anglers like, hey, I'm gonna get 2/3 of the day to fish now, without having to be possibly stuck in the middle of the river. Line scopers don't always stick you in the middle of the lake, but quite a bit. I want to look at some of the questions we got. And somebody put on there, this is what transparency looks like. Other organizations should take a look. Why are boaters being punished for the lack of co-anglers? There are proven ways to keep your boaters if there is enough co-anglers, also killing participation across the board. This is also, I guess he's talking about live scope. Because this is, I guess what he's asking is, this is punishing the boaters for lack of co-anglers. This is not about lack of co-anglers. It's helping co-anglers. It will help co-anglers. But you told me a long time ago, it's about making sure that more than one technique wins every event. And that goes to the whole industry. We have to look at the industry as a whole, because if people are having in tournaments to not use live scope for 2/3 of the day, then that means you got to start back buying crankbaits, spinnerbaits, jigs, worms, all these other things. And, for the last year, it's been minnows. I mean, you get in my son's boat right now, and it's 90% minnows. Yeah. Let me see what JT said on here.
Yeah.
Look at some of the people are saying,
take on
up
all
the
this.
entry fees, do away with the co-anglers. If we do away with the co-anglers, then those guys don't end up being boaters. And we got to look at the future. Brent Reeves, it's about money. Co-angler numbers are way down, which costs money. Well, absolutely. 3-piece landing. See, I disagree with it. So this guy says, quickest way to wipe out the younger anglers in the sport. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
So you and I talked about one of the decisions of what you're wanting to do is make it kind of standard all the way up. BFLs all the way up. But you're banning it at the high school level. Mm-hmm. So talk about why you think it's, because one, I'll say this now, and I've said it a bunch of times to people. That didn't help your high school trail by banning it, numbers wise. Mm-hmm. And I said to people, he did this for the better of the sport, not the better of the organization. Because that's not increasing your numbers by banning live scope.
Nope.
But talk about why you did that.
So here we are at this point in time, and this is just maybe between the two of us, but we believe that something close to 3 hours a day of live scope is in there. So what does that mean? That means that 2/3 of the time you have to know how to and learn how to do all the rest of it. Okay? So if you come into the space and you take advantage of the technology as a high school angler, and you learn how to use whatever your brand of forward facing is, when you move to the next level, you don't know how to catch them, and that's a disservice to those anglers. So for me personally, right, wrong, or indifferent, but we're giving opinions here tonight. Yeah. I believe it's imperative that you learn the rest of fishing in addition to your opportunity to use forward-facing sonar. And so that's why it's been at that level. It also creates an economic barrier, honestly, and I've always been, I'm all about tournament fishing. I think I don't know why everybody in the world doesn't do it, but they don't. But there are a lot of kids who want to participate in our sport, and we need them. Okay, our industry needs them. We need them to come into the space because we're stronger, and it makes better tournaments and better payouts, and it creates the revenue that everybody wants more money. And it all comes from that participation and those sponsors having the ability to contribute. It's a cycle. It's an economy, is what it is. So to prohibit them, and here's what we saw early on also in high school, another element. You have some families that are wealthy that had, 5 sonar screens, and they had a $120,000 rig out there competing with kids that wanted to be part of our sport, that grew up, more from what I know about you, you're pretty close to how I was. We didn't have anything to go out. Well, we wanted to go and be part of it. And it's not affordable. And if it just dominates, so for all of those reasons, and to your point, it wasn't for, and it didn't increase our participation, maybe helped keep some of those high school kids that were leaving because they couldn't afford to be there. Families couldn't afford to be there. That's why high school doesn't need to be part of this. But college on.
That's what I was going to ask. Are you going to limit in college as well?
I think everything should be limited. I'll say again, not sure we have it right, and tournament organizations should consider whatever works for their group, okay? But I think it should be limited everywhere, and it's for the purpose. Remember the overarching purpose here. We kind of split as a group, all of us. And we have, guys that love forward facing, guys in the middle, guys that hate forward facing. But what we do have statistically all across the nation is we have less participation, guys. We have worse tournaments. Our local opens that used to have, even here at Guntersville, it's one of the heaviest tournament participation lakes in America. And we have tournaments that are annuals, whether it's a fundraiser for, Children's Hospital or whatever it is, and they're down 30 and 40 and 50%. And a lot of it, when you talk to anglers that aren't fishing anymore, they don't want to be part of all this chaos, and forward-facing sonar had a big impact on that. Guys want to have a chance. They just want to have a chance to get a check. And from the results here, and certainly at the pro level, it's not a bad thing. Hey, remember when mapping came into our space? This is not the first game changer.
I've said it before. My son doesn't understand when I tell him this, but I'm not going to say mapping affected fishing more than live scope, because that's probably not true. But mapping hurt people that had put in a lot of work, knew where things were, spent the time on the lake. For me, I dove for mussels. I know where every shell bed is on the Tennessee River. And so for me, I knew where everything was, and then maps come out and everybody else gets to know where it is. And so mapping allows you to sit at home and know where you're going to go fishing the next day. And some would say that live scope allows you to just, it's not as easy as putting down a trolling motor, okay? For you people that think that, let me tell you something. That is not the case. There is a science to it. There is a reason that there's you got these 1%ers. It's not easy. However, it's not easy to be great at it, put it that way. But mapping hurt a lot.
Mapping, everybody forgot the changes we've gone through. I remember when years ago, and I was fishing an event at Lake Erie, and in the old days at Lake Erie, we took paper maps, and that's a big lake, guys, and we'd ride around, and you may or may not find the hump you're looking at. So you don't know where you are, and you're trying to find it. I remember when I got in avionics as quick as I could, and in fact had to buy a new unit, and my boat wasn't but maybe 2 years old, that would burn avionics because the early ones wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I went and I found this shoal on the Canadian side, and I think it was a Bassmaster Invitational out of Sandusky. And I ran all the way over to the Canadian side, and there's a one little hump here, and I had caught some big fish on it. And I just drove straight to it because I had mapping. And before that, like you said, you spent all 3 days trying to find a shoal, to fish. And there was a boat, a local boat that came up in that event and was mad at me. Came up next to me, and he demanded to know who showed me this, because it was a rock pile about as big as this room, and he demanded to know who showed me that. He was so mad, and I'm like, I have mapping, and it's on the map, and I just drove here, and it had fish on it. I've been fishing here from, my granddaddy showed me this place, and there ain't no way you found this place. And then he's right, there's no way you would have. Yeah. I had to show him on my map the rock pile. I said, come and look at this. Just ease over here. He said, that's my map, and we're right here. Where you see this little triangle? That's us.
Boy, he
didn't know how to respond.
Yeah.
And so mapping, prior to, me having an active target, but prior to that, mapping was the overwhelming change. And I was an offshore angler early on and spent a lot of that time, and I know how hard it was to get there, but it's not the first change. And listen, right now we're talking about forward-facing sonar with a 15-degree cone angle and that limited technology. What about the next technology increase? What about when when this technology is 360 and not just 15, and you don't have to move around, and you don't have to follow them or find them, and you're just looking? What if that happens?
Oh.
And what about what comes after that?
There's 360 coming pretty quick, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. Knox had a question in here, and I had heard this before. What if you made BFLs a team event? Do you think that would hurt participation? Because I know that's been discussed about combining weight. What do you think that would hurt? I mean, for me, I can answer one part of that. For the really good anglers, boaters, they don't want that. Mm-hmm. They don't want that, and they don't want somebody that's not as good of an angler for their co-angler to look up and catch a 6-pounder and add to that person's weight. That part, I think, would be frustrating for the boaters. But do you think it would hurt participation doing that?
I think that what we have, which is a known quantity that a lot of anglers like, you have to really be careful when you talk about making changes to something institutional, like the red bands becoming the BFLs and now what they are. But that tournament league goes back to the beginning for all of us that are old enough, that aren't past fishing to know what it is. And so we have talked about, and another change we made for the co-anglers was the 3-fish limit to help, make it to where you didn't get that far apart, where and we expect that will help participation because everybody is kind of involved. But if you did combine weight, and we don't currently have any plans for 26 to do this, but I think it's kind of cool to consider letting the boater fish their weight and letting the co-angler fish the combined weight. That would certainly be good for the co-anglers, and it wouldn't take away from the boater, because he'd still have his weight, and the co-angler wouldn't mind.
You would have the co-anglers pulling for their boater.
You got that right. You could bed fish all day, and the guy'd be happy. Just let me catch 3 back there. Just point me out 3, and I'm good because I got a 3-fish limit, and all the weight you catch goes on my paycheck. Yeah. So that's kind of a neat idea we've talked about. No, not saying we're planning to do that, but there's some combination. No.
Okay.
Okay. No.
So. JT Harden said, "Get Boyd a smoke and some Woodford."
Thank you, JT. That's the way he and I sit around. Yeah.
People are talking about one of the biggest comments I've seen on here about co-anglers is having to get a link and having to get a co-angler, and that's one of the problems you're trying to solve with this. Is to bring those co-anglers back by limiting the time that you're going to use forward-facing sonar. That's one of the things that's trying to be fixed here is to bring the co-anglers back by doing that. And again, nobody knows the right answer. If we knew the right answer, we wouldn't be talking and y'all wouldn't be fussing. Everybody would know what the answer is, but it's crazy what forward-facing sonar, I guess the divide it's caused, because I see it in the professional realm. I see it even all the way down to the local level, and I hate it when somebody like Hayden Marbett, he can come over here and catch 5 for 25 on a trout and win a tournament, and all he hears is "you dang old scoper." You're doing that scoper.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then you hear the scopers, we say, well, they couldn't catch them without it. So it's caused a big divide in our sport. And somebody said, if something's so controversial, why don't you just ban it? Well, we're trying to fix it. We're trying to get to where it's not as controversial, and trying to solve it to where you're never going to make everybody happy. That's not going to happen. In my videos, the number one thing I see is ban it, ban it, ban it, ban it. And then you have the other side coming and saying, why are we banning it? I mean, why don't we just limit it? So, I think that obviously when y'all released the rules for the Bass Pro Tour that they were going to use it a third of the time, that was big. That was a hit. And it's even more interesting because you're wondering when somebody's going to use it. And then you're watching somebody down in the standings and they didn't use it first and second period, or you see a Jake Lawrence or a Drew Gill with a big lead and you say, okay, well, let's see what you're going to do without it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been good.
It's made it fun for our guys at Bass Pro Tour. I think they were nervous about how it was going to be coming into it, but it's put a whole new dynamic into it because now you have to figure out how to incorporate it, and it's just more exciting. It's a challenge, for those guys.
Speaking of the Bass Pro Tour, so y'all going to 50 this year.
Be 51 because we had it'll be 51 one more year through the gap year.
And are the payouts going to change numbers-wise? Are the same amount of people going to get paid each tournament?
We'll pay 50% of the field, and we increase payouts. First place, $150,000 now.
Okay, pay 50% of the field.
50% of the field.
Okay. And so with those guys, are there any plans to go lower than 50?
No plans to go lower than 50.
All right. And with JT said, love the third format. I'm for 50-50. Well, this year's the best to watch this season. Oh, absolutely. The format this year has been incredible. Boyd has the best golden retriever ever, in case you didn't know.
My buddy. That's Knox.
Hey, somebody else called me and said that you had a son that was a rock star. Is that true?
Well, you got to put it in perspective. So I have a music background. I was in the music industry 10 years. Got a lot of friends in the music industry. We're a country music family. That's what I did. So we got 5 big ones, Jennifer and I do, between us, all grown and gone. My oldest son plays music and plays out and country music. So we also have a 12-year-old and who has no interest in country music, and his buddies listen to metal and everything from Nirvana to Metallica and Slipknot and Green Day and just a whole genre, all these different sounds that we traditionally haven't done. Had no interest in learning anything I knew, and I tried to teach him how to play acoustic guitar, and he didn't do it. So when he was 10 years old, which is just 2 years ago, he asked for an electric guitar and an amp for Christmas, I believe, birthday or Christmas. I think it was Christmas. So I bought a $40 amp. I mean, something I was sure I was going to find in the driveway, probably, and $100 for the whole setup. And he started playing electric guitar, and he didn't want to take music lessons. He's a pretty shy young man, and so I downloaded an app, the Tabs app. And the Tabs app is, unless you know music, can be complicated to figure out how to follow the tab, but it is right there. And so he learned how to play electric guitar, and now he's 2 years in, and to be honest with you, he's really good. Really? I'm his dad, but you should ask someone else from the music industry that I would know, that would tell you he's outstanding to be 12 years old.
He's 12 years old?
He's 12 years old, so, yeah, wish I'd have brought something we could play it, but yeah, he plays Metallica. He's got a little band that he just put together with 3 buddies. It's really hard when you're 12 and 13 years old.
I was going to say, how do you put together a band at 12 years old?
He has worked for a year to get enough together to guys that had enough interest, and they practice, and they're called Meltwater, and you can check them out. They have a... What's
the name of it?
It's called Meltwater.
Meltwater.
Yeah, and so you can see them on YouTube. So, and I think they have a TikTok account.
So you have to hear that in the house?
No, well, originally, but we pretty quickly. So I had a garage space that was available, and so we shifted. The whole music room now lives outside, so they're in the garage, so they don't bother us. But yeah, he is all about playing metal, and he's good at it.
How about that?
Yeah.
I don't remember who called me and told me that. Somebody. It may have been JT that told me that. I don't remember, but somebody did.
Good little player. I'd rather do that than fish. I don't know where he gets that.
JT said you can play and sing? You're a singer?
Used to be.
You want to sing Rich Man South of Seabold? Do you remember that song?
I do remember the song. I'd have to have the lyrics. I don't know it well enough.
Somebody said, why not ban it for a year and see what happens? I don't see how you can go wrong. Man, you can go wrong with banning it for a year. You can answer this better than I can, but I can tell you right now from a scoper's dad that loves MLF, loves Toyota Series and everything about MLF, he wouldn't fish it. I'll tell you right now. There's a couple of anglers who I won't say their name. Obviously, I talked to them, guys that fished invitationals this year, that when they heard, there was a lot of rumors, and that's why I called you. There was a lot of rumors going around that y'all were going to do one day with scope and the next 2 days was without, and guys were like, I'm out, done.
Yeah.
Because what you had in the invitationals was guys that would be leading or be up in the top day one, and then day two fall back down. And they got frustrated. A lot of them got frustrated. We've had several people that says, hey, I'm not fishing invitationals next year. I'm so frustrated. And then they hear that you might do this where you can do it a little bit each day. And they say, okay, I'm good. And where I think we're going with this, with a third of the day, to me, this is my opinion, is that all of the arguing about you couldn't catch them without scope, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, it makes everything more of a level playing field to where you do have to do everything. And I'll tell you something, the people that's all about banning scope and saying that you can't catch them without them, you're going to have people like the Drew Gills of the world. We've seen it this year with Drew Gill and Jake Lawrence. People said in the very beginning, and I even made a video jokingly about Drew Gill early in the year, about, after live scope, he should just go to Waffle House after his live scope period. Then he caught an 8-pounder on a chatterbait. Yeah. And so what you're fixing to find is these guys are going to get a lot better without live scope, and they're going to be Jacob Wheeler-ish type people. And I shouldn't even compare somebody to Jacob Wheeler, because I'll tell y'all something about him in just a second. But that's what we're going to get to is these guys are going to learn more and more. And one thing I want to say about the scopers in their defense, most of these people, your Jake Lawrences, your Drew Gills, your Tucker Smiths, and all these guys that we think are great scopers, they would have ended up being great fishermen without it.
Absolutely.
Okay? They put their time in, they worked their butts off, and they were into it. It wasn't just that the technology made them good, okay? The difference is that they found the technology and they became good at it. But if you're going to be good with that technology, you still have to go and do it every single day, okay? The kids that I know, and I'm just talking about the young kids with Lake, Fisher, and I, the younger kids that I grew up coaching and fishing with, they're going every single day. JT, I just showed him a paper asking about that, and he said that could not be commented on. But these guys would have been good to begin with. They would have been good. It may have taken them longer to be good, but they were still going to be stars.
No doubt about it. If there was any question about that, I learned that quickly watching our guys, at Bass Pro Tour at all levels. You said it right. If they'd have put that same amount of energy, because they're great anglers and they're special, okay? The guys that catch them, like the guys you just mentioned, those are special people. In my career, it was Kevin Van Dam. We all could throw a jerkbait, but we could never throw one like he did. And he worked hard, and there were techniques that he was so good at. I remember going to Grand Lake. It was in the summertime. It was a June tournament, and Van Dam was probably leading top. Somewhere on top, probably leading. And all the talk was, he catch them on jerkbait. And 30 guys tied on a jerkbait in June.
Didn't matter.
And they couldn't catch them because it wasn't even a jerkbait event. But he could, because he could do things that other people can't do. These young anglers that are superstars at forward facing and utilizing that technique, with time would become superstars at those others. So you're completely right. They can all catch them. Is there an adjustment? Yes, they'll have to. If you came into the sport and you only learned the forward-facing portion, you're going to have to learn those other techniques. But it won't take them long. No. I mean, those are great anglers.
Well, and I use Fisher and I as an example. He and Lake fished together coming up some in high school. And now Fisher is recognized as a scoper. Okay, listen, I boat captained them. Okay, when they were 14, 15 years old, you didn't say nothing. They told you where they were going. They told you when they were leaving, and it wasn't you're trying to tell you need to do this. Now we still told them stuff, but you didn't have to do any of that, and it wasn't live scope. But then when live scope came about, they just took off. And Tucker Smith's another one. You know, Tucker Smith won 3 national championships on Kentucky Lake. Wasn't because of live scope. The last year, him and Hayden Marbett won. They caught them on bars in 3 foot of water on top water. They weren't live scope. There's like that with a lot of Bass Pro Tour guys. But, you know, what I was going to say about Jacob Wheeler, people ask all the time, well, why is he so good? What's he doing? I'll tell you. We talk about the techniques of fishing, flipping, fishing grass, offshore, live scope, fishing boat docks, flipping docks. Then you got preparation. Jacob Wheeler is top 5 in every category, but in this one, preparation, he's number 1, and it ain't close. There's nobody close to it. And that's what makes him the best fisherman in the world. I mean, it just is.
I'll give you a 6th one.
Yeah.
Work ethic.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
That boy works.
Yeah.
He works hard.
I don't think I ever talked to him and he's not fishing.
Ain't practicing.
I called at the Toyota Series. We were at Chickamauga, and y'all were coming to, what lakes were y'all coming to? Y'all fishing 2 different lakes in Tennessee. He was going to the one up above it.
Yeah.
Because it was similar. And he was just out there fishing because it's similar.
Yeah. Yep. Trying to
Man, he's always
learn what
doing
he can. Hey, or you'll talk to him in the middle of the summer when we're not going to Lake Erie and it's not on the schedule, and he'll be practicing Erie and any given body water.
Yeah.
To try, because he knows his game in his career. He's going to be back there.
Yeah.
He's going to be at Norman. He's going to be at Okeechobee. He's going to be at Toledo Bend.
And they're all that way. I tell people all the time, you know, I'm friends with Wiggins and we live close. And when Lake will go fishing and I talk to Wiggins or I talk to Jordan or Lucas, whoever it may be, well, where's Lake at? How's he catching them? What's he throwing? What's he doing? They're like sponges. And it's not because they're wanting to go there and do it. They're just wanting to know
more
to
knowledge.
keep that in their head of what's going on.
Yeah.
Just for sure. But I guess with the forward-facing sonar, everybody's wanted to know, and we've explained that about, you know, possibly doing a third of the time. It's going to stay the same. The things will stay the same on the Bass Pro Tour, obviously. And the invitationals, do you think that doing it this way is going to bring more people to the invitationals?
I think so, because I think it's we weren't sure what to do with the invitationals. Obviously missed it. If everybody wasn't happy, we missed it. And it's like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not certain about these things. I'm only certain that we have to figure it out. I know that we can't do nothing and win. I know that we have to take on the challenge to figure it out, whether it's third of the day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, or whatever it is. So yes, at the invitationals, to answer directly, that'll be a third of the day next season for sure.
Well, Lake had heard that the invitationals were going to be 1 day with scope and 2 without. And I was on the phone with somebody, and he was fishing a tournament. We were fishing the Fisherman's National Championship. And he turned around and looked at me, and he goes, hey, he said, you told me that anglers should not decide the rules or the formats because they're gonna vote on what benefits them the most. I said, that's right. He goes, Boyd Fish Invitationals? I said, yeah. He said, why does he get to decide what I get to use? Because he's picking what, is going to benefit him the most. And I said, buddy, I don't think it's going to be 1 day without, or 1 day with and 2 days without, because the guys were just, they hear all kind of rumors, and they're calling thinking I know, and I don't know, and they're calling me going, this is bull crap, I'm done. I'm like, I don't think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, just to be completely clear, so we have in the acquisition of FLW, what we gained in that acquisition was a lot of years of tournament experience. We have all those BFL tournament directors, Toyota Series, obviously all the tour directors, and a management team that spent their whole careers in fishing. So I'll float an idea, and I meet with the tournament directors. I don't make individual decisions. We have too good a team, and so I may float an ideal to Dave Washburn and Kathy, and they'll put together a meeting, and then sometimes the tournament directors will eat me up and convince me that it's horrible, and those guys have a ton of experience. So we're very collective. I don't want to. I'm not sitting here making these rules. I'm trying to guide the ship and create the outline, and then let those of us that are talented and experienced. And I'm really interested in outside the sport, not within our organization. I mean, I talk to you about things that are good for our space, and people that care about our space. I'm very interested. I get a lot of good suggestions from the people that I interact with. And that's why, my opinion is that this is a collective industry problem. This is no question. And so collectively as an industry, we have to bounce it off of each other and find that right combination.
But you and I talked earlier, this is the only sport, and some people may not call it a sport, but this is the only sport that we don't have a governing body. We don't have a governing body that says, hey, this is the standard. It's each organization is creating their own standard. Could you see that? I know we couldn't right now because we have three different owners of the three different organizations. But could you see that where we had a governing body that kind of dictated some of those things?
I think that would be hugely beneficial. I think the difference is that all those other sports you mentioned are single entities. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So if all of us collectively, we just partnership with all the three tours that are available, if we all got together and created a single league, still ran all the tournaments that we did, then it would fit. It would be very much in place. But I think as long as you have, our sport is one of the only one that's, of all the successful leagues, they all have one entity.
Yeah.
And I think that's fundamentally the difference.
So another question, before you were MLA, or before you acquired FLW, the Cup events were very profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And you get FLW, and now you're a league. Is there any talk about mixing in Cup events, going back to some Cup events, or anything like that? Because it was so successful. And now, it seems like we need something other than what we have of just straight tournaments, because those Cup events were awesome. I mean, we still watch them on YouTube. We go back and watch those. So is there any talk about maybe coming back to that?
Well, what we did with the Cup events is we shifted them to the team series. So basically it's the same format, same timing, same budget, really same air time. We kind of replaced the same air slots, but we shifted Cups to the two guys in a boat team series. The Cups had run a long time. We had outstanding ratings but they waned some. You have every show that it airs eventually needs an improvement, and so the team series has done that for us. Our ratings we had a substantial increase in ratings with the team series because it's fun. It's what so many people do.
I had to show them I was a real person.
Yeah.
So somebody keeps calling me on thing. So let me ask you this, and we talked about such good stuff, and I hate to even bring this part up, but it's the financial part of fishing. We after 2020, and in the last couple of years, we have anglers that are struggling financially. We can come up with all kind of reasons for that. One, I blame social media, a lot of it. Now you have a lot of social media influencers that are taking money that once went to the professionals. But I know the conversation you had with your guys about why we're going to 50, why we're trying to get down, because we're trying to make those guys make more money. And we still have guys that are going to be in this top 50 that financially are still struggling. Do you think that once we get to that 50, that's going to help? And how is that going to help? And the reason I ask that is because you and I both have deals with different companies. But, yeah, when we get to 50, now we've got 30 guys. I'll throw Matt Lee out there. Mm-hmm. He doesn't fish anymore professionally. Mm-hmm. But are we saying that the money that used to go to Matt Lee or Cliff Crochet or whoever is going to come to these guys? Because it doesn't seem like that happens. So how are we going to make these guys benefit more financially just by cutting to 50? How do you see that happening?
Well, so putting in perspective, when the 30 more anglers are in it, like any tour, you have 30 more entry fees being paid. Remember, our whole lives have been in tournament fishing. The largest sum of money paid out has been from the entry fees. That's not changed. We'd all love to see it change, but that requires our sport growing an audience. That's what we lack. The difference between us and golf is audience. It's just, that's it. And the difference between the golf and NASCAR is audience. And the difference between NASCAR and the NFL is audience. Now all the money is tied to the value of the impressions that an audience provides. So that's the 30,000 foot start at what it takes to make professional bass fishing grow up. So it's incumbent on the leagues, and we certainly lead that with the amount of television and live stream that we have in all the places. But that's our challenge. That's our job, is to find a way to produce a product, introduce it to a new audience, go to all the networks and streaming that you can to bring that big, heavy income in. But until that can be accomplished by us or Bass or MPF, all of us together, we pay entry fees. The payout does go up going to 50 because the contribution from the league doesn't go across as many guys. Yeah. But do remember, you have 35,000 entries that don't come in. Yeah. So it doesn't go up exponentially, but it does go up. We also contributed as a league money to the pot to be able to go that 150,000.
Yeah. Next year you're going to have I looked at it basically $112,000 per tournament that doesn't go in the pot. If you count 15 entries next year,
right? Yeah, that's right.
The entry fee.
That's right. So,
So I see how having less people obviously is gonna help, but how long is it gonna take, and is that gonna translate? Like, I wish that these brands would, okay, we're gonna pay these guys more because there's only 50 of them, but them brands are just looking at it like, I can go sponsor another guy over here.
That's a challenge that I don't know that we have control of, but what we do have control of is offering a media platform so that those anglers' impressions and value is high as it can be. And there's no question that smaller field allows us to do that. Basically, we cover those guys, and that's really the bigger portion for the anglers, until we're able to grow the sport and bring more money into the space, where we, love not to have entry fees. But without entry fees, payouts Bass went without entry fees and created a payout. I'm not picking on them. I know too. We did it before that. We started there, but there isn't enough profit in the tournament business to run the payouts we have with no entry fees. Can't happen. Business model doesn't work, and I wish it would. I work every day to make it work.
This is a $6 million question, but if 2020 doesn't happen, if COVID doesn't happen, do you think we're in a much different place?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that COVID in the outdoor space had a positive impact and not a negative impact. I say that because though we might not want more people fishing our holes, the more people that participate in our space, number one, we want viewers, because we just talked about how that is how you build a sport. But we also want people to participate because it brings money into the space, and the Rapalas and the Pure Fishings and the Mercuries and the boat manufacturers, they have increased revenue to share in the space. And so it getting bigger is what makes tournament fishing bigger. So the endemic side growing always, if you look at the history, has always done well for the tournament guys. The other money is our responsibility as tournament leagues to find a way to learn how to run our events and to produce a television product that the Anheuser-Busch's and the Goodyears and all those non-endemics, it's up to us to try to find a way to offer them the value. Selling sponsorship is a misconception. We have all these assets, can you go sell sponsorship? Guys, it's as hard on our side as it is on your side. I guarantee you, because you get involved in it. So it's not about having the asset. It's about having an asset that is wanted to the point to where a non-endemic will come into the space and do it.
How many cameras will y'all have this year with having 50 anglers? Knox asked, out of 50 anglers, how many will have cameras on them, or how many cameras will y'all have?
So we'll run 7 through the qualifying rounds, and we'll run 10 on the top 10 on the final day. Everybody has a camera, and we run 7. But we have a really cool. I assume this is noticeable. It's noticeable to me, and we pay money to get there. But we do an outstanding job, heads off to our production team, in our ability to anticipate and track anglers to do camera transfers. You'll see 30 or 35 of those guys on camera. Yeah. And if you ever wonder how that's happening, that's because we have boats staged everywhere. We communicate. Obviously, everybody's live on GPS for us. So we're always watching Score Tracker move and do that. So we cover the event really good with that. And then final day, because you don't want to miss a moment of that top 10, there's 10 cameras.
So one of the questions that I got today from one of your Bass Pro Tour anglers, it's funny how sometimes they'll get me to ask stuff that they don't want to talk about.
They don't want to ask.
Yeah, they don't want to ask.
Yeah.
But the perception to them is, because they had heard that 50% of the field would get paid, is that, okay, we're cutting from 80 to 65 to 50. So we're cutting out over 2 years 30 anglers. We used to pay 50% of the field, which was 40 anglers. So we had 40 places. So now these guys have worked their butt off to stay in that 50, but now we're paying 15 less places than we paid 2 years ago. And what they feel like is, hey, since we've gotten here, I'm not one of them people who thinks everybody should get a trophy. Mm-hmm. However, this is not just everybody getting a trophy. These 50 anglers are the 50 studs that's endured and made it there. So why make it 150 for first and not spread that other out to pay more places? Now, I'm all for 150 for first, okay? Let me just say that. I'm for 150 for first. This was a question that was asked to me. But why are we increasing first place more and we're cutting the numbers where 25 through 40 doesn't get paid?
So we, traditionally in all of our history of our sport, we paid half the field. Most of the schedules and the money and entry fees are based on that. So that's one, is you're kind of staying with that traditional process. I'll also say, and all the Bass Pro Tour anglers know, because I've stood in front of them so many times, all that is negotiable. I mean, it's not, we believe that we set it where we think it's, one, good for the sport, it's good for the fans and the potential fans and the growth of the sport, because if you have a $50,000 first place or $150,000 first place, it matters to new fans. If a guy stands to win $10,000, I'm just throwing that out there, those shows aren't very popular. If you want a popular television show, pay them $1 million. People watch you do anything. They climb mountains or eat plants or anything in the world. So following that premise, that first place prize is really important for the growth of the sport. But I say all that in that if the majority of our anglers thought we had the payout wrong, it doesn't cost us anything to fix that. So I'm very open-minded to that, and they know that. We've talked through it, we've changed them before. But realize for everyone, this is usually what I find at the end of it, you know, there's equally that many guys that want it like it is. And so,
Yeah.
and I've always kind of had the rule that if it's not an overwhelming majority, we're not going to make a change, because why piss off half the group just to make the other half, happy.
Yeah.
So, but if it proves to be the wrong thing to do, or if we can please the overwhelming majority of our anglers, we make changes. That's how we kind of changed everything. We have had tons of positive impact by working with our anglers. A lot of these changes and a lot of the advancements that you've seen us do at Major League Fishing are angler ideas. I talk to anglers all the time, and our guys, not specifically about competition, because you can't get the competitor out of an angler, but about the space and about ways to make it better. It's our anglers are smart guys. It's what they do, and they do it all the time. And so I'm always open to hear what they have to say.
Paul Bork said, think Calcutta is like saltwater tournaments. Let anglers pay more in tournaments to ban. Hey, I'm working on something like that, so I ain't even going to mention that comment.
You're not even going to bring that one
I'm
up.
not going to bring that one up, Paul. We're working on something like that.
All right.
But yeah, I mean that's I like the idea of them getting paid more. Obviously, I mean I love that idea.
I do too.
I want professional anglers to get paid like people in professional sports. That's the whole goal. I push for that every single day. You know, it's just how do you make it happen? I don't know.
Well, you know, as a quick recap, somebody has got to figure out, either collectively or individually or someone or some group, we have to figure out how to make our sport have a larger audience. That's where the big money is. Every other sport.
How many people do you think watch tournament fishing?
All leagues. All leagues.
How many people on a Saturday, no matter if it's Bass, NPFL, MLF, how many people are actually tuning in watching tournament fishing?
500,000.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
And I think I may be high.
Could be.
And there's 56.5 million people that bought fishing licenses.
Yeah.
So where do we get the other 56 million? You know, how do we get them to watch? Because if we get them to watch, you know, we've done something.
Yeah, it goes to show you that we don't have that figured out yet.
Kevin Baxter said if they're paid like professionals, they can also be cut like professionals. Payment should be based on performance. I agree with that. You know, if we're paying them like that. But what a lot of people don't understand, especially a lot of these young guys coming out of high school, coming out of college, and we were at the national championship this past week, and the tournament director told them, said, listen, don't let this early success go to your head. And you need to go to college. You need to get that extra experience and even maybe that degree. I'm going to throw a number out there, and I'm just guessing, okay? But I'm going to say there's 103 guys that fish the Bassmaster Elite Series. I'm going to say out of 103 guys that fish the Bassmaster Elite Series, not counting winnings, take winnings out of it, I'm going to say over 50% have less than $50,000 in sponsorships.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so when people say that it's a pay-to-play, it is somewhat of a pay-to-play. It is very difficult if it's like you're talking about that high school angler that's in a John boat or whatever it may be to work his way up to fish a professional tour. It's hard. And people don't understand with these entry fees that you have to pay and your expenses, most of the time you're looking at $60,000, $70,000. Then you got to turn around and make that money. And if you got a mortgage or whatever it may be, you got to have $100,000 in sponsorships just to cover all that. Then you got to go cash a check. So it's not, right now, it's not the dream job like you think, okay? If you're planning on coming, you think you're going to make the elites or make the Bass Pro Tour or go fish the NPFL and you're immediately making over $100,000, you got another thing coming. And it's not, I try to tell the young guys all the time, it's professional fishing is more than catching them. Okay? You got to be able to sell a product. You have to be able to sell yourself. That doesn't mean you have to be the greatest talker in the world, but you do have to be able to sell a product. If people are going to pay you, they want a return on that investment. And so I don't know of anybody, including Jacob Wheeler, that from the start could have lived off of his winnings. I don't see it.
Maybe Wheeler, but he's a freak.
But starting from the beginning.
No, probably right. Starting from the beginning. You know, you said something earlier in the broadcast that is a great point. Bass fishing has changed and will continue to change. In the early part of my era, there was no internet. There was no internet. And so my value as a pro would be to go to boat shows and do this work to get all that extra money. So when I did deals with my big sponsors back in those days, I was expected to give them this one 10 appearances and this one 5 appearances and go work our tails off. And then we were powerful influencers, very powerful, because that's the only time they got to be around someone that knew more than they did, or we were certainly supposed to. The era has changed. And you mentioned early on, social media has changed it. But that doesn't mean that you can't make it as a professional bass fisherman. What it means is you got to be able to catch them. You have to be willing to work. Look, no matter what you do in life or any career you choose, guy that works it hard is probably going to pass you. Okay, yeah. So you know that fundamental item never changes. But if it requires being a social media influencer, do it. Learn how to do it. It's a wonderful opportunity to go out instead of doing whatever else you would have done, whatever other job you would have done. Works hard for everybody, okay? I mean, they're all hard. Trust me, they're all hard.
Yeah.
But to get the luxury to be able to go catch fish and spend all this time on the water is a phenomenal opportunity, okay? So for young pro anglers, don't be scared to work for that. If you want to be president of a major corporation, you know how hard that path is? It's harder than this.
Absolutely.
Okay? It's harder. To make big money takes a lot of work, y'all. And you're right. It's not about catching them. It's about the whole package. Yeah. So today's social media, if you want to be a social media influencer, beat those big influencer that's getting the Strike King money and the Rapala money and the Pure Fishing money and the motor money. Put out more content than they do. You have to be willing to do that work and become that total package. And we have anglers that do that, and they kill it. The other thing that, and this has existed since the beginning of time, and I'm just going to say it, okay? Because you want to be a professional bass angler doesn't mean you get to, okay? And I don't mean that derogatory. My whole life, I have seen wonderful people come and not make it in our sport. Guess what? Golf pays really good. It's easier to make it here than it is in golf.
Oh,
there are so many levels of golf that have no money in it that guys spend their whole life and can't make it to that final 144 or whatever the tour card number is. Yeah. They can't get there and sustain there. And sports aren't designed for that. Sports are designed to highlight and pay those greatest performers. That's what sports are. So ours is no different. And so my advice would be, one, don't have high expectations if you're not willing to try to be the best in the world, because trust me, you're going to get paid. There's a lot of money in sport if you catch more than everybody else. Trust me.
But this is the one sport that you can lose more than you win and still be the greatest in the world.
Maybe.
Jacob Wheeler loses more than he wins. I'm talking about
loses.
Place.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But he's a powerful influencer, and he does well financially. so you know, but that's where I go. It was just, my point is, let's let the pros take back the influencer money, because our top paid pros, and which by the way, guys, aren't all the guys that catch the most.
Yeah.
go recognize that they're stealing part of your money, and go learn how to become an influencer like those guys that don't tournament fish at all but are great influencers. Learn that job.
I think that I've said it from the beginning when I saw social media growing. I said, hey, when the pros understand that social media people are taking money from them, it's gonna click, and they're gonna start gaining that following, because here's the one thing that pros have that your typical social media guy doesn't, and that's credibility.
No doubt.
Ben Milliken took the biggest risk I've ever seen anybody take when he went to fish the Opens, because if he doesn't make it, he already had the credibility and the following. But if he doesn't make it, then people start to question it. And he made it. And look where he's at. Blake Hall asked, in regards to the invitationals, can we possibly not allow guys to cherry pick tournaments, fish one tournament?
That's never been our intention. The reason we did that was to maximize payouts. The Tackle Warehouse Invitational is designed at 150 boats. It's a great payout. It's the minus the Bass Pro Tour. Tackle Warehouse Invitationals is the highest paying tour out there per event. It's the highest paying tour per event out there.
You mean per
event?
Per total, or based on the pay?
Not total, because there's Lead Series has 9 events compared to 6 in a
I
championship.
mean, you mean per event.
Per event. Okay. Per investment. Per $5,000 investment. Yeah, that'd be. So great paying, but it requires 150 boats, and we don't want to reduce payouts. So we're gonna love to have nothing but guys that fished all of them, and top 33% or whatever go, top 50 go to the championship. Love to have that, but until we have that, to keep from declining the event, we have to let some guys in at the local events.
Yeah.
But
It's like somebody wanted me to give you something to wear on the show.
What? Whoa, we got trouble now.
It matches. It halfway matches. Yeah, I'll never hear the end of that one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, we got trouble now.
Let's see. What happened to the online betting on fishing? That seemed like it was a potential to change the money in the sport.
No doubt, and I don't know who this individual is, but we've gone through several companies. We did a deal with Ballybet, and Bally came into the space, and we had sponsorship with the full intention. We're really, with our real-time scoring and with having officials for verification in the boat, online betting has a ton of laws and regulations built around it.
You can't. It's not a controlled event. You can't have a controlled space, and if you look at every other event that can be bet on, it's controlled. For instance, you can't, if my guy's getting beat, you can't keep me from going out there in a wake boat and circling the other guy. It's not a controlled event.
But we were able to get past a lot. I mean, we worked hard to make the changes to be able to convince them that we could be enough of a controlled environment to allow gambling. Unfortunately, the betting space has grown up so much, Bally's got out of it. And that was our one. Now, we haven't quit, and we're still trying, and we're still talking to betting companies, because whoever you are, that's a great point. It would no doubt expand our audience if we got into betting, because people go, I don't know, what's this bass fishing thing?
Yeah.
I'm going to bet on it, so I'm going to watch one. And it gives us, that's a correct question, and we work on it all the time. We just haven't been able to put it across the finish line.
JT said, what about adding live streaming chat during events?
We have talked about that before, and we certainly could add some live streaming chat. We have a pretty busy live stream now on the desk, and I'm trying to give you a correct answer. That's a production question. But I've asked that before. You remember we used to do that when we had not Shelley Sanders, but we had another lady that did that for a while with it, and we did that, and we took a little 2-minute segment and did that piece. But it was just a challenge to get the streaming value out of that versus a competition. And the majority of our fans, want to watch fishing.
So I have a suggestion of something that I want to see just as a tournament angler, and I think it would be more realistic to people that fish every weekend. And we have a tendency, and I say we, as in MLF, Bassmaster, the organizations, to go find the guy that's whacking them. I want to see the guy that's struggling. I want to see the guy that was leading after 2 days and now he can't catch them. I want to know what's going through his mind, because that's realistic to me of seeing that, of knowing what's going through his head, because your average guy doesn't go out there and catch 20 pounds every day. It doesn't happen. So I want to see more. People are saying, there's been a lot of comments in here about Savannah bananas and reality, because 50 million people watched Duck Dynasty. They didn't watch it for the duck hunting.
No, they didn't.
They didn't care about duck hunting. So what about, we talk about trying to get past that 500,000. We want to get to that 56.5 million. Well, the one thing that the other 56 million have in common is they love reality.
Yeah, that's right. One of the, now you've gotten into the world of what we have stomach acid over all the time, okay? We want the sport to be true professional bass fishing. Our fan base, when we try little odd off the wall things, and even when we've had things that were non-traditional, we get a lot of negative feedback about losing the core of the sport. And we don't want to change our sport. Football didn't change for the audience. So that sits on one shoulder. And then on the other shoulder is exactly what you just said. If we had, dancing ponies and whatever in the bass boats with us, we may have a bigger audience. So we need to be open-minded to consider, may or may not be Bass Pro Tour, may be Bass Pro Tour, but we should continue to try to find ways to grow the audience, even if it means it deviates from what we all know as the standard was. Because the other option is it stays the same, and payouts stay the same, and it's never better than it is, right? At the end of the day, if we're only talking about tournament fishing for professional anglers, if they pay no entry fees and the money stayed the same, let's just start there, because that would be achievable. If that takes doing something weird to bring the audience, that should sure be talked about, and we do. We just don't know what that magic is. We don't want to ruin the sport trying to do it either.
Somebody had sent me a question. I can't look at it on my phone, but I remember kind of what it was. Like, when you look at it, you're having to look at what's best for the anglers, but the fans are the most important aspect.
No doubt.
Because that's what drives everything.
So pays the bills, guys.
Somebody asked, and I don't want to get off subject here, but somebody asked how we caught 50 at Jordan. And the only reason I'm going to answer this is because I'm going to go into this scoping thing. The way we caught 50 at Jordan, and I caught one, we caught 50 a day, was because I was with a master scoper. That's why. And that goes back to what we talked about limiting it to a third of the time. Because when these guys are that good at scoping, I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but they expect to win. They think they're supposed to win. And when we're going out there, or let's say when the scopers, and I was with Lake, but if he's going out there and he catches 50, and the other guys that aren't scoping, they catch 8, chances are that we're going to get 3 fish out of our 50 that's bigger than those 8. Chances are. And that's what happens with the scoping when you have all day to do it. However, I feel like when you've only got a third of the day to scope, the scopers, the really, really good ones, still have they still have a good chance to win, but it also gives them another avenue to go fishing to figure out how to catch them a different way. But again, it's about the co-anglers too, of them being able to do something besides setting the boat out in the middle of the river. Because you ask how we caught 50 a day, in the middle of the river. That's how we caught them.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's how it works.
So, and I think that was the big thing. I don't want people to think, or I'm speaking for you right now, but I don't want people to think that the changing the live scope rules was not just for co-anglers. It's for the sport. And it's to make sure that, and you're the one that taught me this, because when you said it, that's when it kind of hit me, was to make sure that one technique doesn't dominate the sport. And the day you told me that, I started thinking about it, and I thought, now wait a minute, if that technique's not the only one, then we go back to selling the crankbaits and the spinner baits and all the other baits that we're wanting to sell. And, we can make the argument. I've heard people say live scope's the reason for decline in the fishing industry. Look, I do a lot of stuff with 6 Sense. There's no decline, but they're a very innovative company. And so the people who are innovative and have come out with new things, they're not struggling. They're doing well. I know that some people in the fishing industry that have struggled, and I know that, well, you have a rod company. I'm sure bait casters ain't just flying off the shelves.
They're not, and obviously we certainly have tried to be innovative in the scope. Our number on the bait side, on the duck fishing bait side, our sway minnow and sway minnow head and that system. I mean, we're selling more of those than we did a lot of the other stuff. So we have an increase in sales, honestly, as a result of using forward facing stuff. So, but I think overall it is. I think if you took the whole industry overall, you do have some companies that are ahead maybe from that. But I think overall it's probably decreased because there aren't as many different techniques you have to buy for. So if you look straight across the boards, but well, we do that on final day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brent Reeves brought up something that I've said too. This is why, boy, to tell you, I've said 50% of the time the whole time instead of a third. He says BFLs are just weekend warriors and don't limit it or ban live scope. Okay? And I know, I'll let you answer that, of why are limiting it at the BFL level.
Well, I think that, one, we have a decrease in participation from BFL anglers, and our tournament directors who are very close to our anglers. That's the number one reason that we have. There's a lot of guys that either don't have the skill set or choose not to. You just go to forward-facing sonar primarily. That would love to participate, but that's not the only thing they want to do. So I think that for all of tournament fishing, honestly, and even outside of our league, I think all of tournament fishing will ultimately, whether we have it right or not, will find a way to limit forward-facing sonar so that it fits into the sport. I've said this about twice or maybe 3 times, so I'm going to say this again. Individually, banning it only has the non-scope guys. Scope-only events only have the scope guys. And so unless we all come together, our tournaments will be unsuccessful. The leagues can't afford to run them. There'll be no payout there'll be substantially less payout at the ramp. It isn't working. We do know it has negatively affected that participation. So I think it's now down to what is the right amount so that everybody has a fair chance and will come together and put all their entry fees together, and we can have those $10,000 payout tournaments again at local levels. I think that's what you're going to see well beyond our organization.
So another thing that people have asked, and I didn't really think about it, is giving more love to BFL guys and that. And I think y'all do a good job. If you're looking for it, you find it. But those are the BFLs are where you're trying to make money. One of the leagues you're trying to make money, and so giving more love to those guys when they do win, and showing a little more coverage to the BFLs. Do you think that would help doing that at the Toyotas, the BFLs? And the Toyotas are great. Look, Jody White's been at every one I've been in, that I've been at. The other camera guy, Rob Matsura's been there. They do an awesome job. They're 2 of the best in the business at doing what they do. But at the BFL level, we don't ever have anything like that, really.
As far as coverage.
Coverage, yeah.
We put on, 126
Well, that's
of
true.
them.
That's true.
So,
I guess so.
so really that's
Yeah.
the issue is the economics. BFL is operating. BFL doesn't make the money everybody thinks it makes. If anybody thinks somebody's getting rich in the tournament business, call all the owners.
Yeah.
Okay, and so when we talk about doing things, it's how can we do it without it costing the anglers and us being able to afford to do it. We couldn't afford to cover BFLs with a person at each event. We have tried to increase, and you should have noticed some increase in our website presence.
Yeah.
When you go to BFL, it covers nothing but the BFLs, and we're trying to find ways to. Our PR department, we do press releases, certainly local to that city where the event occurred, and we do our very best because we love those guys, and that's a huge accomplishment, to win a BFL event, but you just have the cost factor that prohibits some of that.
Hayden Marbett says, what is the deal for Toyotas and Invitationals next year?
All of our participating anglers will get the official information this fall, but we've probably given a lot of it up today.
Yeah. He already knows.
There you go.
He already knows. So I guess if y'all got any more questions, y'all ask it. I think we've covered a lot tonight. For the people that says they come in late and they want to know what's happening, you'll have to look at it on YouTube, I guess.
It re-airs.
Yeah.
Always available.
Somebody said add some professional wrestling angler. Yeah. Again, I want to thank Paul and Jana for having us here. This is an awesome setup, and it was great because otherwise we were going to be at my house and you would have got to meet the cat, Floyd Buckets. Have you seen my cat, Floyd Buckets?
I have. I've seen him. Black cat. He jumps up behind you sometimes. Yeah,
yes,
I've seen him.
Yeah, I know.
Love the name, by the way.
Yep,
love his name.
But also I announced earlier, congratulations to Bass Mooch. They just acquired Profound Outdoors, and all the molds and everything are going to stay the same. They'll change the name from Azuma on some of the stuff to Bass Mooch. Thank you to Waterland, Plenum Medical, and I said I was going to talk about Bill Dance. So,
yeah.
Bill Dance, like I'd go down to the Gulf with Fishing Chaos, and I would go ask people, do you know who Jacob Wheeler is? Do you know who Jordan Lee is? They didn't know. And I would get around to it and find out and say, Bill Dance. Everybody knows who Bill Dance is.
Everybody knows Bill Dance.
That 56.5 million knows who Bill Dance is.
Yes, they do.
And he's coming out with this Bill Dance Giant Bass Open, a virtual tournament. It's going to be incredible. It's on Fishing Chaos. And he's come out with this thing, and he's so excited because he said that he thinks this is, basically going to be his legacy. That dude's got a legacy.
If he doesn't do anything else, he's got all the legacy he can stand.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yep. Incredible person.
And I think he's like 80 years old now.
He is. Maybe one or two.
Is it not crazy? Like I guess you fished against. Did you fish against Roland, Jimmy Houston, and
Roland Houston, not Bill Dance.
Not Bill Dance. I got to take Roland last year on a smallmouth fishing trip, and I didn't take any cameras or anything out of respect. He was filming it for his YouTube. Mm-hmm. God, I wish I'd have took a camera.
Oh,
hear the stories when he got to talking, just raw. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how many times he finished in second place. Mm-hmm. And he got to telling me this one. So, back in the day, they let the sports writers fish.
Yeah.
And he tells me, he said, I'm fishing this tower. He was on the Tennessee River. It may have been Wheeler. So I was fishing this power line tower. And he said, I'm throwing up the corner. I'm just whacking them. He said, I don't have a fish in my live well less than 3.5 pounds. He said, so I told my sports writers, I'm like, hey, you want to catch some, man? You go. He said, I got the tournament won. He said, I got it won by like 6 pounds. Guy throws up there. Guy catches 2 pound-and-a-halfers. Okay, throws them in live well. They take off to the weigh-in. The guy put one on his side of live well.
Oh.
He got
had 2 minutes. Oh. Had too many fish.
And even though they knew that guy's was a pound and a halfer, they said, "Hey, you're responsible to know for your limit." And he had one too many.
Oh, wow.
And so he told me about all these stories of where he had finished second. And man, I was sitting there trying to remember all of them, and I thought, "Are you kidding me? You didn't bring anything to record this?"
Yeah, wow.
And it was the most. It was awesome. I took him when I was 20 or 21. I took him on Whaler, but that was different, And to get to take him now after everything, it was incredible.
That is special. A quick Bill Dance story. So at the tackle warehouse this year at Pickwick back in May, I stayed at their state park. We put in at the state park, had a room there, and loved to stay there. And went down to the restaurant on a practice day, and I'm sitting there eating, and I look, and to the side profile, I see a Tennessee hat and a guy that looks like Bill Dance sitting in there, and I'm like, why would he be here? So I walk over I'm not even sure it's him, so I kind of like walk like I'm going to the salad bar, and I see it's Bill, and I'm like, Bill, what are you doing? Hey, boy, how are you? Man, and he really didn't even know we were having the event there. And I'm like, why are you here? He said, let me show you these pictures. So he's filming a show, catfish show, below the dam.
Man.
And when he fishes below the Pickwick Dam, he stays right there at the state park. So he was just there fishing, and he's showing they had like a 78 and a 60 something, and then some other pretty decent, plenty enough, had a good show and all that. And I'm like, you're 80, 1 or 2 years old, whatever is correct, and you're catching, a 78-pound catfish down below the dam. It's like, 9 o'clock at night. They just get back in, and there's Bill. He's still out shooting and had a blast. Was excited to tell me
He caught this big catfish.
to tell me how much fun he had catching this big fat catfish, from how they baited it and how hard he pulled, and when he got wrapped around something like it was the first one he ever caught. And it
That's
just had an impact on me. At his age, to catch a fish is still as much fun as when he was 8 years old.
And that's how he's got the 56.5 million.
Yeah.
He just goes and catches them.
Goes and catches them and loves it.
But he was a showman too, still is. It's like we talk about with Duck Dynasty. The 50 million people watched Duck Dynasty and didn't care anything about duck hunting. I think a lot of people watched Bill Dance and didn't care about the fishing.
Yeah, that's right.
It was all the bloopers and the things that he did, slamming rods in the tailgate and the different things that he did was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way.
Yeah, somebody said he's 84.
Oh, 84. I was thinking low 80s.
That is incredible.
84.
I was amazed with Roland. He had been fishing 6 days in a row. And we had won a tournament on Saturday, and a buddy of his called me and said, "Hey, Roland's here. He wants to go smallmouth fishing tomorrow." And I'm like, we kind of burned them up yesterday, but we'll go.
Try.
And so I wasn't going to pass that trip up, but I do wish I would have just had my GoPro for nothing else, recording the audio from that. Was incredible.
That had to be. Yeah. The awesome experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll get off here. And thank y'all for watching. I know, Boyd, a lot of people have commented about thank you for coming on. They're impressed by you, and they appreciate I guess you call it transparency. You talking about things and interacting, and you get to know what the fans think, because like we said before, those are the ones that are ultimately paying the bills.
That's it. That's our audience.
And you want to know what they think and how they feel about things. So I know everybody appreciates it, and I appreciate it.
Well, I'm here because I love the space, and my energy in Major League Fishing is driven to try to make it better for the next ones coming. Look, Gary Klein and I talked about this back in 2009, that if we could work hard and find a way with this new format, and I've been on track for that. It's what motivates me to work at Major League Fishing every day. If we can make it, so that the young anglers come into the space, do better than we did, we won. And I promise you that's what motivates me. So it's make a lot of mistakes, but it's for the right reasons. All we can do is try.
I've said it a bunch of times. People, I get all kind of things about your bitch, you whine, you cry. My ultimate goal is to make things better than how I found them. You may disagree with how I go about it, but you know, I can honestly say I didn't start social media to do any of this. It just happened. I guess Cayuga was the best thing ever happened to me. I didn't know it.
Yeah, you didn't know it, yeah.
But anyway, I do appreciate you spending the time and sharing with everybody and answering the questions and talking about the future of the sport.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the fact that you care about it, because these platforms are what give us a chance to hear from everybody and try to do a better job.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Enjoyed it.
And thank y'all.